Right now, as you watch this video, 2.2 billion people don't have access to clean drinking water. That's 1 in every 3 humans on Earth. But here's the insane part. 97% of Earth's water is sitting right there, in our oceans. Undrinkable. Toxic if you try. It's the ultimate cosmic joke. We're drowning in water while dying of thirst. For decades, we've been brute forcing a solution. We built factories that slam seawater through membranes at 1,000 pounds per square inch. It works, but it's absurdly expensive and energy hungry. Current desalination uses more electricity per year than entire countries like Denmark. But what if I told you that evolution already solved this problem 3.5 billion years ago? Meet aquaporin, the molecule that won a Nobel Prize. This tiny protein channel sits in every cell in your body right now, filtering water at a rate so fast, so efficient, it makes our best technology look like a child's science project. One aquaporin channel can transport 3 billion water molecules per second while rejecting every single salt ion. And it does this using 0 external energy. Scientists looked at this and asked, what if we could copy nature's design? What if we could build desalination membranes that work like living cells? Welcome back to Grand Structures. Today, we're diving into the most important engineering race of the 21st century, a race to redesign water itself. We'll explore 3 breakthrough technologies: biomimetic membranes inspired by your cells, graphene filters 1 atom thick, and a process that uses almost no energy at all. This is the story of how we're hacking nature's perfect filter, and it could save civilization. To understand why these new technologies matter, you need to understand the problem with current desalination, and it all comes down to one number: 3.5 kilowatt hours. That's how much electricity it takes to desalinate 1 cubic meter of seawater using modern reverse osmosis. For context, that's enough energy to keep your refrigerator running for 3 days, just to make 264 gallons of drinking water.
Now, to be fair, we've gotten way better. In the 1970s, desalination required 20 kilowatt hours per cubic meter. We've achieved an 85% reduction in energy use. That's incredible progress. But here's where it gets scary. We're running into a wall, not an engineering wall, a physics wall. The laws of thermodynamics tell us that the absolute minimum energy needed to separate salt from seawater, if you had a perfectly efficient machine, is about 1 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. We're currently at 3.5. That means we're operating at roughly 30% thermodynamic efficiency. We've squeezed out most of the easy gains. Going from 3.5 to 1.0 would require revolutionary, not evolutionary improvements. And there's a deeper problem. By 2030, the UN projects that 14% of the world's population will depend on desalinated water. That's over 1 billion people. Currently, global desalination consumes about 250 terawatt hours of electricity per year. That's 0.4% of all global energy consumption. If we scale up to serve 1 billion people using current technology, we'd need to double or even triple that energy demand. We're talking about adding the equivalent of 50 large power plants just for water. And here's the cruel irony. Most water-stressed regions are also energy poor. Gaza, Yemen, parts of India and Africa. They need desalination the most, but can afford it the least. At current energy costs, desalinated water costs between $1 to $2.50 per cubic meter. For a family in rural India, that's unaffordable. This is why scientists around the world are obsessed with a single question. Can we break the energy barrier? Can we build membranes that get us closer to that 1 kilowatt-hour limit? Or better yet, can we go even lower? The answer is yes, and the solution is already inside you. Let's zoom into your cells. Right now, in the membrane of every cell in your body, there are millions of these. Aquaporin-1, a protein channel that is 2.8 nanometers tall. That's 25,000 times thinner than a human hair.
Aquaporins have an hourglass shape. The narrowest point, the selectivity filter, is just 2.8 angstroms wide. That's precisely the diameter of a single water molecule. Sodium ions? 7.2 angstroms when hydrated. They physically cannot fit. But here's the miracle. Despite this insanely tight filter, aquaporins don't slow water down. They move water at nearly the speed of free diffusion, 3 billion molecules per second per channel. It's like trying to fit through a door that's exactly your width while running at full speed, and somehow it works. In 2003, Peter Agre won the Nobel Prize for discovering aquaporins. The Nobel Committee said his work was the beginning of a molecular revolution in biology. But scientists immediately saw something else. This could be the beginning of a water revolution. The idea was simple. What if we could embed real aquaporin proteins into artificial membranes, create a hybrid, part biology, part engineering, a biomimetic membrane? Early attempts in the 2010s were disappointing. Researchers tried embedding aquaporin-carrying vesicles into polyamide membranes. The problem? Defects. Nanoscale gaps and holes where the vesicles didn't seal perfectly. Salt leaked through like water through a broken dam. A single defect just 10 nanometers wide can undo the work of thousands of perfect aquaporin channels. It's like having a submarine with one tiny hole. Doesn't matter how strong the rest of it is. Study after study found the same thing. Salt rejection was mediocre, 90% at best. Commercial reverse osmosis membranes achieved 99.5% or higher. The technology wasn't ready. Then, in November 2020, a team led by Dr. Mihail Barboiu published something remarkable in Nature Nanotechnology. They had cracked the code. Instead of using fragile biological proteins, they created artificial water channels, synthetic molecules that mimic aquaporin structure. They called them I-quartets. 4 identical molecules self-assemble into a tube held together by hydrogen bonds. The inner diameter, 2.6 angstroms, almost identical to natural aquaporins. But here's the game changer. These artificial channels are stable, scalable, and defect-free. Barboiu's team figured out how to seamlessly incorporate them into polyamide membranes using interfacial polymerization, the same process used to make commercial RO membranes.
The results were stunning. That water flux is 75% higher than state-of-the-art commercial membranes with equivalent salt rejection. Translation? You could desalinate the same amount of water using 12% less energy and covering 40% less membrane area. For a desalination plant producing 100,000 cubic meters per day, that 12% energy savings translates to $3 to $5 million per year in electricity costs. Over a 20-year lifespan, we're talking about $60 to $100 million saved per facility. But laboratory breakthroughs and industrial reality are two very different things. The million-dollar question, literally, is, can you manufacture these biomimetic membranes at scale? And the answer, remarkably, is yes. Barboiu's team demonstrated they could fabricate defect-free biomimetic membranes at multi-square meter scale. They collaborated with Aquaporin AS, a Danish company that's been commercializing aquaporin-based technology. As of 2024, aquaporin-inspired membranes are commercially available. They're being used for brackish water desalination and tap water purification. Seawater desalination membranes are in pilot testing. They're not science fiction anymore. They're entering the market. That said, challenges remain. The biggest? Mechanical durability. Reverse osmosis operates at insane pressures, 55 to 70 bar. That's like having a car parked on every square inch of the membrane. Recent molecular dynamics simulations found that the helices in aquaporin proteins can experience high strain and potential unfolding under prolonged stress. Researchers at Sharif University modeled over 250 simulations in 2024 and found that at 55 bar pressure, forces on protein structures peak at 14 piconewtons. The weakest points, specific helices called HTB and H1, are susceptible to deformation over time. The solution? Engineers are designing hybrid membranes where artificial channels carry the structural load, freeing the biological components from mechanical stress. It's a balancing act, maximizing performance while ensuring 20-year operational lifespans. Now let's talk about the most hyped material in science, graphene. A single layer of carbon atoms arranged in a hexagonal lattice. It's the thinnest material possible, 1 atom thick, and it could revolutionize desalination. Here's why physicists are obsessed with graphene for water filtration. Remember how I said water flux through a membrane is inversely proportional to thickness. Current polyimide membranes are about 100 to 200 nanometers thick. Graphene, 0.34 nanometers. That's 300 to 600 times thinner. In theory, a perfect graphene membrane could deliver water permeability that's orders of magnitude higher than anything we have today. There are 2 ways to use graphene for desalination. Approach 1, nanoporous graphene. You take a single sheet of graphene and punch nanometer-scale holes in it, like a molecular colander. If you get the hole size just right, water flows through, but salt ions are blocked. In simulations, nanoporous graphene membranes show near-perfect salt rejection, close to 100%, with water permeability 6 to 66 times higher than conventional membranes. It sounds incredible, and it is, but there's a catch.
Creating perfect, defect-free nanopores across large areas is basically impossible with current technology. You need pores that are uniformly sub 0.45 nanometers in radius. Even a single misplaced atom creates a defect that lets salt through. As of 2024, no one has successfully scaled nanoporous graphene membranes beyond lab samples a few centimeters across. Industrial membranes need to be meters wide and tens of meters long. The defect density increases exponentially with area. So scientists pivoted to approach 2, graphene oxide laminates. Instead of punching holes, you stack oxidized graphene sheets on top of each other. The spacing between layers, the interlayer distance, is controlled to be around 7 to 10 angstroms. Water can slip between the layers through these nano channels, but larger hydrated ions get stuck. It's like a molecular maze. And unlike nanoporous graphene, GO laminates are much easier to manufacture. In March of 2024, researchers published a comprehensive review in NPJ 2D Materials and Applications. They found graphene oxide membranes achieved VZR performance. Now, 86% salt rejection isn't good enough for seawater desalination. You need 99% plus. But for brackish water or industrial wastewater, it's more than sufficient. And that insane water flux means you can treat massive volumes quickly. But graphene oxide has an Achilles heel: water stability. GO sheets are hydrophilic. They love water. Too much. Immersed in water, GO membranes swell, the interlayer spacing expands, and selectivity collapses. Early geomembranes would work beautifully for a few hours, then degrade. Salt rejection would drop from 90% to 40% in a week. For commercial use, you need membranes that last 5 to 10 years. But in the last 18 months, there's been an explosion of solutions: chemical cross-linking, polymer intercalation, metal-organic framework composites. In October of 2024, researchers demonstrated geomembranes cross-linked with silk fibroin, a natural protein from silkworm cocoons. The silk acts as a molecular reinforcement, stabilizing the geo layers. Result? The membranes maintained performance after 14 days of continuous filtration. Another team embedded wholly geo oxide, geo sheets with controlled holes, into laminates. The holes improve water flux, while the laminate structure maintains mechanical strength. In July of 2024, they reported power generation from osmotic gradients, opening up entirely new applications. The billion-dollar question: can you make geomembranes at industrial scale? And the honest answer is, we're getting close, but not there yet. Current geomembrane manufacturing can produce sheets up to half a meter wide. Commercial RO manufacturing lines produce membranes 1 meter wide and 50+ meters long continuously. The gap is narrowing, but it's not closed. Companies like Suez, Toray Industries, and emerging startups are investing heavily. If current progress continues, we could see commercial desalination membranes by 2027 to 2030. That's not hype. That's the real timeline based on current manufacturing development.
Okay, let's talk about the technology that could actually break the energy barrier: forward osmosis. And it works completely differently from everything we've discussed so far. Reverse osmosis, you apply massive pressure, up to 70 bar, to force water through a membrane. It's brute force. Forward osmosis, you use no external pressure, zero. Instead, you exploit the natural osmotic gradient. Here's the setup. On one side of the membrane, you have seawater. On the other side, you place a draw solution, a super concentrated solution with extremely high osmotic pressure. Water naturally flows from low concentration, seawater, to high concentration, draw solution. No pumps required. The membrane does the selectivity work. It only lets water through, not salt. The draw solution captures the water. Then, in a second step, you separate the water from the draw solution. Now here's where it gets interesting. Forward osmosis itself uses almost zero energy. It's driven by nature. The energy cost comes entirely from the second step, recovering the draw solution. And this is where FO gets complex. If you use a salt as your draw solution, say sodium chloride, you need to use reverse osmosis to separate the water out, and you're back to square one. No energy savings. But what if you used a draw solution that's easy to remove? That's the breakthrough. Researchers have developed thermo-responsive draw solutions, magnetic nanoparticles, ammonium-based salts that decompose with heat. In May 2024, researchers published results on electrochemically enhanced forward osmosis in the journal Chem Electrochem. They integrated electrochemical processes with FO to regenerate the draw solution. The idea: use a small amount of electricity to trigger chemical reactions that regenerate your draw solution. Early results show specific energy consumption as low as 1.5 to 2 kilowatt-hours per cubic meter. That's 40 to 50% less than conventional RO. If you could deploy this at scale, you'd cut desalination energy costs almost in half. For a large plant, that's tens of millions of dollars per year saved. But, and this is important, FO is not commercially mature. As of December 2024, there were only a handful of FO desalination plants operating worldwide. Modern water-operated plants in Oman, Gibraltar, and China, but they're small scale, thousands of cubic meters per day, not hundreds of thousands like commercial RO plants. The FO desalination market was valued at about $250 to $300 million in 2024. That's tiny compared to the multi-billion-dollar RO market. Analysts project it could grow to $600 million by 2030, with a compound annual growth rate of 18%. But here's the twist. The future might not be FO replacing RO. It might be FO enhancing RO. Several pilot plants are testing hybrid systems. FO does the initial concentration, reducing the salinity. Then RO finishes the job. This reduces the pressure needed for RO, cutting energy consumption by 20 to 30%, the best of both worlds.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We have incredible breakthroughs in labs, nature papers, Nobel Prizes. But walk into any desalination plant today and you'll find the same polyamide thin film composite membranes invented in the 1980s. Why? Because there's a vast chasm between works in the lab and works at industrial scale. Membrane engineers call it the Valley of Death, and it's littered with technologies that never made it across. There are 4 brutal challenges every new membrane technology must overcome. In a lab, you can make a 10 centimeter times 10 centimeter membrane sample and inspect every square millimeter. In a factory, you're producing kilometers of membrane per day. A single defect, a pinhole 50 nanometers wide, can ruin performance. Current industrial RO production has defect rates of less than 1 per 1,000 square meters. New technologies need to match or beat that. As one researcher put it, making a perfect small sample is science. Making a million perfect samples is engineering. Commercial membranes need to survive 5 to 10 years of operation at high pressure with daily thermal and chemical cleaning. They undergo expansion, contraction, and physical abrasion. Biomimetic and graphene membranes are still proving they can handle this abuse. A 2025 study found that defect-free artificial water channel membranes maintain performance after 14 days of continuous operation. That's promising, but it's not 10 years. Longevity testing is ongoing. Desalination membranes get fouled. Bacteria, organic matter, mineral scale builds up. To clean them, you blast them with sodium hypochlorite, bleach, acids, and bases. Traditional polyamide membranes can tolerate this. Can graphene oxide? Can protein-based channels? Early aquaporin membranes degraded rapidly when exposed to chlorine. Artificial water channels show better stability, but it's still an active research question. No one wants to deploy a $50 million membrane that fails after the first cleaning cycle. And finally, the brutal truth. New technology has to be cheaper or dramatically better than what exists. Current RO membranes cost about $25 to $50 per square meter. They're commodity products with razor-thin margins. Biomimetic membranes with artificial water channels are more expensive to manufacture, for now. Graphene oxide synthesis requires oxidation of graphite, exfoliation, and precise layering. All of that adds cost. The question is, do the energy savings over 10 years offset the upfront higher cost? Early economic models suggest that for large plants, a 12% energy reduction from biomimetic membranes could justify a 20 to 30% higher capital cost. The math works, but only if operational lifetimes match conventional membranes. So what's the real timeline? When will these technologies actually impact the world? 2025 to 2027, we're going to see pilot-scale deployments. Aquaporin IP membranes are already being tested in brackish water plants. Graphene oxide hybrid membranes are moving into small industrial wastewater applications. Forward osmosis hybrid systems are being piloted in the Middle East. 2027 to 2030, if pilots succeed, we'll see the first commercial-scale installations, not entire plants, but hybrid systems. A large SWRO plant might install one train, one production line with biomimetic membranes to test long-term performance.
This is where economics become critical. Early adopters will be high-value markets: Singapore, Israel, Gulf states, places where water scarcity is acute and energy costs are high. If the technology proves itself there, it'll spread. After 2030, if these technologies deliver on their promise, higher flux, lower energy, competitive cost, we'll hit a tipping point. New plants will specify next-gen membranes as standard. Retrofit programs will upgrade existing plants. And here's where it gets exciting. Every percentage point reduction in desalination energy translates to millions of tons of CO2 avoided. It makes desalinated water affordable to more people. It reduces the cost of food grown with desalinated irrigation water. But there's a wild card: machine learning-driven material discovery. In 2024, AI systems like AlphaFold and Materials Genome Initiatives are accelerating discovery exponentially. Researchers are using AI to screen millions of potential membrane materials in silico before ever synthesizing them. A human chemist might test 50 new membrane materials per year. An AI can evaluate 50,000 virtual materials per day. We could discover membrane architectures that no human would ever think to try. The pace of innovation is about to go vertical. I want to pause here and talk about what this actually means, because it's easy to get lost in the science, angstroms and kilowatt hours and thermodynamic efficiency. But for 2.2 billion people, access to clean water isn't an engineering problem, it's an existential crisis. In Gaza, Yemen, Pakistan, parts of California, water stress is creating humanitarian disasters. If these technologies can cut desalination costs by even 25%, they don't just save money, they save lives. They prevent migration, they reduce conflict. Water wars aren't fiction, they're already happening. But we need to talk about the dark side of desalination. For every liter of fresh water you produce, you create 1 to 1.5 liters of brine, super concentrated salty wastewater. Global desalination produces about 142 million cubic meters of brine per day. That's enough to cover Florida a foot deep every year. And where does it go? We dump it back into the ocean. High salinity brine creates dead zones on the ocean floor. It disrupts marine ecosystems. In the Persian Gulf, where 40% of global desalination occurs, scientists are measuring measurable increases in baseline salinity. We're slowly making the ocean saltier. This is why the next generation of desalination isn't just about better membranes, it's about zero liquid discharge, using every drop, extracting valuable minerals from brine, lithium, magnesium, rare earths, and crystallizing the remaining salts into manageable solids. Several pilot plants are testing this. They combine desalination with brine mining. The economics are marginal right now, but as mineral prices rise and environmental regulations tighten, it could become mandatory. So let's bring it all together. The future of desalination isn't one technology, it's three working in concert. The global desalination market is currently worth $18 billion per year. By 2030, it's projected to reach $32 billion. By 2050, some analysts say $100 billion or more. The question isn't whether we'll adopt these technologies. Water scarcity guarantees we will. The question is how fast, because climate change is accelerating, droughts are intensifying, population is growing. The UN estimates that by 2050, 5 billion people, nearly half of humanity, will live in water-stressed regions.
We have a choice.
On one path, we continue with energy-intensive desalination that burns fossil fuels and pumps CO2 into the atmosphere while creating toxic brine. That path leads to more droughts, more conflict, more migration. Or we invest in next-generation technologies. We copy nature's 3.5 billion-year-old designs. We build membranes 1 atom thick. We harness osmotic gradients. We make clean water abundant and affordable. That path could end water scarcity in our lifetime. The water revolution isn't coming, it's already here. Aquaporin membranes are being installed right now. Graphene oxide is moving from labs to factories. Forward osmosis plants are operating in 3 continents. The scientists and engineers working on these technologies aren't doing it for glory or profit. They're doing it because 2.2 billion people need water, because our planet is 70% water and we're dying of thirst, because it's the engineering challenge of our generation, and because sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to copy the solution that's been inside you all along. So here's my question for you. If we had unlimited clean water, what would change? Would we end famines, green deserts, build new cities in places we thought were uninhabitable? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the engineering that could save civilization, hit that subscribe button. We're building something special here at Grand Structures, the intersection of engineering, geopolitics, and the future. Next time, we're investigating the race to build floating cities. Yes, that's real. Yes, it's happening now. Until then, remember, the future is built by people who refuse to accept that problems are unsolvable. Stay curious, stay ambitious.